Howdy ho ho, my good humans. How the hell are you doing? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I am Brandon Sylvia. Thank you all for stopping by. Thank you all for tuning in for a little Game of the Year 2023 nominee prediction update video. So as you see here, I have every game that I nominated, the big six that I nominated to be Game of the Year. I have them pulled up on the screen here. And now I feel like it's kind of the perfect time to go back over this to finalize my predictions, because I think pretty much every game that can be nominated for Game of the Year has already released, which unfortunately means that the true Game of the Year, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, will not be included in that list. I can't even lie. I'm kind of excited for Avatar, the Ubisoft's Avatar game. Far Cry, Avatar skin, I'm cool with it. But yeah, when I made my first round of predictions, Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake had not come out yet, and neither had Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And that is the big reasoning behind this video in the first place. One of these six games has to go in order for Super Mario Bros. Wonder to get in. I underestimated the power of Mario, a 2D Mario game in 2023. Thing came out, and I think it's sitting at like a 92 on Metacritic right now. Just absolutely astounding numbers. So, I mean, it is without a shadow of a doubt going to be in that final six. I just got to figure out which of these games, or maybe even a couple of these games, that I need to swap out in order for Mario Brothers and maybe something else to even get in. So we'll just run through these one by one until I get my my final six that I am confident in, because this is set in stone from this point. It'll only be, by the time I release this, it'll probably only be a couple days until the nominees are unveiled. Tears of the Kingdom, that's a lock. That's for sure going to be there. BG3, that's a lock. It'll for sure be there. Resident Evil 4, no. Actually, you know what, man? I am going to all of these games from Resident Evil 4 on down. So we'll go through them real quick. I'm going to highlight Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, and Armored Core 6. I think we need to talk about all of these. But let's go ahead and talk about Resident Evil 4 here, because I am definitely less confident in RE4 now, and that is because of Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2, I think, will get in the final six. I was blown away by the reception to Alan Wake 2. I shouldn't say I was blown away. I expected it to do well. Obviously, I predicted it to be nominated, but the amount of trusted reviewers and trusted critics who are saying this is their game of the year, that Alan Wake 2, the sequel to a fairly niche game, is GOTY for 2023, the greatest year in the history of video game releases. I mean, that was surprising to me. That was very surprising to me. And I think RE4 might even outperform Alan Wake 2 on Metacritic, but I just don't hear that same type of talk regarding RE4, the remake. And maybe, recency bias, that definitely could play into the equation here, but after seeing how people talked about Alan Wake and the video game version of the A24 films and all of this praise that's being thrown its way, it just makes me less confident in RE4, unfortunately. And it's a bummer, because you would think that, okay, if these two games are two of the best six games of the year, it shouldn't really matter which genre they reside inside of, because we don't look at games that way that are action adventure games or open world games or JRPGs or just RPGs in general. And so I would hope we wouldn't look at survival horror games that way, but it is, up until the last couple years, survival horror has always been a relatively niche genre. But I mean, we're seeing the tides really begin to change there, and survival horror is becoming one of the major players in the video game space. Shout out to Resident Evil 2, the remake in 2019. That kicked all this shit off. Kind of RE7 as well, 2017. We'll jump off Alan Wake 2 and RE4 for the time being. I think Alan Wake 2 is for sure going to be in the final six. Not as confident with RE4. With Spider-Man 2, the same reason I said that I don't think Jedi Survivor would be in the final six, that would be the reasoning I would give here for Spider-Man 2 not being in the final six. I'm not saying it won't be in the final six. I'm saying if that would be the same reason I would remove Spider-Man 2 if I was going to, would be just the fact that a lot of the conversation around the game is just that it was kind of buggy, you know, and I even ran into quite a few bugs. I love the game. I think it's for sure one of probably in my top 6. I don't know my list off the top of my head, but I'd say it's probably in my top 6 favorite games of the year. But I just wonder if the conversation surrounding the bugs, especially with it being fresh in people's minds right now, and that's something that I really didn't expect. You know, the thing I expected was flipped on its head. You know, if you go back and watch that video, it's talking about the thing I worried about was Spider-Man 2 just being more of the same and not having that big moment, or not having that one big standout gameplay hook or narrative shakeup that would separate it from the previous games. And I think it definitely did have that, but I definitely didn't expect it to be as buggy as it was. But I don't know, man. I think Spider-Man 2 is just a little bit too strong to be pushed out of this final 6. I think I still would say RE4 is less likely than Spider-Man 2. Honestly, the easy thing to do here is to look at Armored Core 6 as the cut to get Super Mario Bros. Wonder into the final 6. I know that FromSoft fan base is ravenous, but I think out of these 6, it's probably the most I don't know, would it be more niche than Alan Wake 2? I mean, probably, just with it being a mech game and shit. I would assume more people probably played Alan Wake 2 than Armored Core 6. So I think that's likely the easiest cut to get Super Mario Bros. Wonder in. But like I said, man, the FromSoft fans are a passionate bunch of people, and it's just hard to like totally discount that and be like, oh yeah, there's no chance it gets in. Plus, I mean, think about all the people who were super fans of Armored Core, and, you know, they're a little bit older in the industry, and one of their favorite franchises get brought back, and not only is it back, but it's the first one that people would consider like a truly, truly great game. You know, with most of the other ones kind of staying in that 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 range. This is in that 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 range. But I don't know. I'm going to go with my gut here. I'm going to cut Armored Core 6 and put Super Mario Bros. Wonder in. I wonder, do you think there's any possibility? I'm talking to a damn wall here, but I'm talking to whoever's watching this on the internet. Do y'all think there's any possibility that we see one of the first years in a while where we get Xbox first party, Nintendo first party, and PlayStation first party all represented in the Big 6? Like, I wonder if Resident Evil 4, should I cut that for Starfield? Also, this would be a year with absolutely no indie representation, which is not typical whatsoever. But I mean, what do you take out? You know, what of this 6 do you take out to put in a Dave the Diver or a Sea of Stars or Cocoon or whatever? And it's the funny thing of like what even qualifies as an indie, because technically Baldur's Gate 3 is an indie. It's independent developed and published by Larian. And then on the other end, something like Dave the Diver, I mean, it's still an indie game, but it was published by a pretty large company, Nexon. So, I mean, it's just so goddamn tough to even identify what a real indie game is at this point. I've always just preferred the idea of going off of budget. You know, something that's $5-10 million or less, we'll call that an indie game. Because when you look at something like Pentiment from Obsidian, I know that they had a super, super small team working on that, not an overly large budget. I don't know if it would fit in that $5 to $10 million range, but I think it would be somewhere close to that. I could be totally incorrect on that, though. I have no idea what the hell the budget of that game was. But back to the Starfield thing, I just think I think it was too split. I think the community was too split on how they felt about Starfield for it to be nominated. And then Hi-Fi Rush, I just think that might have been a little bit too niche. And honestly, Hi-Fi Rush is a really, really weird game, because I could see it getting nominated for like 400 different awards, or I could also see it just being completely snubbed. Actually, you know what? We'll close out the video talking about some games that I potentially think could get like no nominations whatsoever. I don't think that being snubbed from Game of the Year, if they're keeping it at 6 nominees, I don't think that's the biggest crime in the world. It's just such a packed year. I don't even know if I would call almost anything, unless Tears of the Kingdom or Baldur's Gate 3, unless those two weren't nominated. Like these other 4 that I have down here below it, RE4, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The crazy thing is I could see, I don't think they will, but there's a reality out there where none of these 4 get nominated. And it's just such a packed year that I don't know if I'd really consider that a major snub. I mean, it would obviously depend on what they were replaced with. If we saw Atomic Heart or Forspoken or something like that take their slot, I'd be a little bit confused. But I think I am going to lock in these final 6. These are the games that I believe will be nominated for Game of the Year 2023. Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, RE4, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. But jumping back to the idea of the snubs, the games that could potentially be snubbed, you know, with Hi-Fi Rush being one of the ones I'm the most curious about, because I think it could and maybe should be nominated for so many things like best art direction, maybe even best game direction in general, best action game potentially. But then again, like I said, I could see a reality where it gets nominated for absolutely nothing, which would be criminal in my opinion, but I could see it. With Starfield, I do think it will be nominated for at least best RPG. If it's not nominated for best RPG, I'll be mind blown. But I think it could probably be nominated for that and best narrative. Don't know if it will win either, but I think it will be nominated for both of those. One that I actually legitimately do think will just totally get snubbed, and it will be a heartbreaker, is Dead Space Remake. Like, where do you throw that in? The only place you could really throw that in is probably best action adventure game, because I don't think they have a best remake category, unless... Okay, so I just pulled it up to make sure. They do not have a best remake remaster category. The only thing it looks like they added this year is best adaptation, if I'm not mistaken, which does make sense with the Mario movie and the Last of Us show and Twisted Metal and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, what does Dead Space get nominated for other than best action adventure in a year where action adventure is going to be packed with your Resident Evil 4s and your Alan Wakes and your Spider-Mans? And I would probably see Jedi Survivor being nominated over Dead Space. Hell, I mean, you would even throw Tears of the Kingdom in that category. So it's like Dead Space, I do not see being nominated for best action adventure, and it's not really an action game per se, so I don't see it there either. And that just really sucks, because that's for sure one of the best games of 2023. But granted, it was one of the best games in 2008 as well, and I think it definitely got its flowers back then. And it's not as drastic of a remake compared to something like Resident Evil 4. So I can somewhat see it, I guess. Once again, it's just such a packed year. It's hard to consider much of anything a snub. But a game that I don't think will be nominated for anything whatsoever, one that I'm very, very confident won't be nominated for anything, I will be just absolutely blown away if this gets nominated for anything at all, and that is Hogwarts Legacy. And obviously that is all just down to politics, and it kind of sucks for Avalanche to not get any sort of recognition for creating a fucking great open world action adventure game, like a truly great open world action adventure game. Someone who I don't give a fuck about Harry Potter at all. I played through the entire game, really enjoyed it. But hey, at the end of the day, it might not get nominated for anything. I can almost guarantee you it won't get nominated for anything, but Avalanche is, you know, they're cashing in some pretty big checks, because that thing sold like fucking hotcakes. So I'm sure they will happily take no awards and a ton of sales. But still, when you make something really fucking cool, it doesn't hurt to get a little pat on your back. One I just thought of that will absolutely be criminal if it's not nominated for best music or best score or whatever they call it is El Paso Elsewhere.
Something prodding of the body, test the gag reflex, got the flinching muscles down, cut the skin reflect, break the bottle, smelling salts, cold water stimuli, shine the flasher, play the music, morphine drip, stay alive, stay awake. All I ask is that you stay awake. Every answer that I didn't take is a step in this dance we made, in this bed we've laid, promised land.
think it was all written by one dude who was a developer on the game, like one of the lead developers on the game. I think he wrote all of the rap songs, like all of the lyrics, and it's so strong and dark, and it fits the mood of the game so perfectly, and like it even ties in, the lyrics directly tie in at times to what you were doing on the screen and kind of the narrative beats that you were going through. It is an incredible soundtrack that definitely deserves to be nominated. I unfortunately don't think it'll be nominated for like best indie game or anything like that, because, you know, like we talked about earlier, it's just it's a crazy year. You have stuff like Dredge, you have stuff like Chia, Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Sea of Stars. You have a bunch of stuff that'll be nominated for best indie game. I think another one that'll get left out of that bunch is Killer Frequency, that I absolutely think deserves some sort of recognition. A really unique concept with that game, playing as like the disc jockey and solving murders and shit. They really need a best horror category, because I mean, look at this year, some of the games that are going to be left off. I could even see potentially Dredge not getting nominated for best indie. I don't know, I think it probably will, but just think of the best horror category this year. RE4, Alan Wake 2, Dredge, Killer Frequency, Dead Space 2, the new Amnesia game, Bramble the Mountain King. I don't know if you would consider Trepang 2, that it's more of a first-person shooter, but it's kind of fear-inspired. Fort Solace I thought was really good. Like, you had so many solid-ass horror games, and they're becoming much more of a dominant force in this industry. I think we do need like a best horror category. But yeah, staying there with Bramble the Mountain King, I think that's one of those games that, in terms of like best art direction, Planet of Lana as well, I could see those two being snubbed or just not recognized for having such great art style and great game direction. I think a licensed game category could make some sense as well, because we had some really solid licensed games this year. I don't know, maybe you don't have them often enough to really have a category for it. And now that I'm actually thinking about it, I can only think of a couple off the top of my head that would even be something worth nominating. RoboCop Rogue City, Spider-Man 2, obviously, Hogwarts, of course. That would be something where if it didn't get in there, you would know that something is a little corrupt. Okay, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, there's definitely not enough licensed games for it to have its own category. But I don't know, those are some of the snubs that I could think of off the top of my head. Hit me in the comments down below with some games that you think will be snubbed, that you'll be bummed out if they don't get some sort of recognition in this arbitrary award show. I know it's easy to be cynical about these award shows, and I can be as well sometimes, but I don't know, man. It's something to look forward to, something to sit back, chill, watch, and enjoy for a couple hours. Like, I don't think it's like a net negative to the world or anything like that. And plus, I mean, last year we had some crazy ass announcements. You know, Hades 2 and Judas and Death Stranding 2. Like, there were some big ass announcements at the 2022 Game Awards. So we shall see, man. And I'll definitely be making a announcement prediction video. I've already began working on that. So you'll be getting that around Game Awards season as well. So definitely stick around, subscribe, like the video, do all that good shit. It helps out the algorithm greatly. And yeah, go ahead and lock in your final 6 predictions for Game of the Year down in the comments below as well. But yeah, man, until next time, you guys take it easy. Have you a good holiday season, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.